We see it now, Lori.
Okay, let me see if I can drag that away. Okay, everybody on board? All right. So today I thought we'd start with introductions, go around and see who all is here. And if you've got any grants or services or collaborations that you'd like to highlight here, we'd love to hear about them. And maybe we'll start with Jim Novelli.
This is Jim Novelli from Discovery Behavioral Healthcare, continuing to work alongside with Ford Kessler and Beacon of Hope on our MAT project and hopefully further collaborations and integrations of services. So,
thanks. How about Sheriff Knoll?
Knoll here. We are working on a navigator grant. Anna McHenry and Judd Haynes and Andy Bernsteiner and I, that's due on the 18th. And so that's one we're working on, and I'll wait and let David talk if he wants about, we also received a grant for the jail on some substance abuse treatment kind of a thing. So I'll let him talk about that if he's so inclined.
All right, Matt Reddy.
Hey there. Yeah, Matt Reddy. I'm one of the hospital commissioners for Jefferson Healthcare, and I don't think I have any specific things to report beyond that.
Well, we always appreciate that you're here. Commissioner Brotherton?
Greg Brotherton, County Commissioner, also representing the Board of Health here, and happy to be here. No specific programs to talk about, but of course the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, RFB, is open. So get your applications in.
I think that everybody needs to be working on a grant. It's just good for you.
How about Dave Fortino?
Hi, Dave Fortino here, Jail Superintendent with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. As the Sheriff mentioned, our residential treatment program, that was a grant that I reported on before. It might be discussed a little bit here as well. We're still waiting for contracts from the state, so they're still a little slow, but that's all we have to report.
Great, thank you. Vicki Kirkpatrick?
Hi, Vicki Kirkpatrick, Director, Jefferson County Public Health. I'm not working on any particular grants at this point in time other than our ongoing COVID-19 response and funding related to that.
Thank you. Denise Banker.
Hi, I'm Denise Banker. I'm from the Empowered Teens Coalition in Chimacum, Washington, in the school district, and also representing the Port Townsend Coalition here at this meeting. We are part of the Community Prevention and Wellness Initiative, and we have secured funding for a partnership for the YMCA and MCS counseling to go forward with some CARES money on a project that we created as a partnership with Jumping Mouse and emergency management and some stuff Anna was also doing, Anna McHenry. And then we are also involved in pushing forward another bit of funding for the YMCA and childcare and the Benji Project and suicide prevention. Thanks.
I wondered before you go away if you wanted to tell us anything about the drug take back and how well we did there. How well you did.
Well, the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department and both the coalitions worked together. The coalition in Chimacum worked alongside with the QFC in Port Hadlock. And we took back about 300 pounds worth of on the street and in the medicine cabinets, prescription and over-the-counter medications. So thanks, Sheriff Knoll, for always being our great, fantastic partner and person to visit with for 4 hours while we're participating.
It was all Denise in the health department. Don't let her believe it.
Well done, you guys. Really well done. How about Peggy Webster?
Oh, hi. I'm not here. I guess I'm here with I'm part of the Affordable Housing Task Force. My interest is in recovery housing. I think there could be some good news coming in terms of the proposed sales tax, because a portion of that would appear that it should be devoted to behavioral treatment and housing related services. So I'm kind of working with the county folks to better understand how the sales tax would be allocated.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Adam York. You might be on mute.
There we go. I'm a data analyst at Jefferson Healthcare. I want to take the little speaking test to say I'm coming right back in the next week to start touching behavioral health data again. And I would like to link up with whoever is coordinating the request to make sure that I understand the schedule and the data points being asked for. So whoever does that, I would like to link up with somebody after the meeting so I kind of know ahead of time what to start pulling. We got a lot of heavy feedback and definitions the past few months. And I'm a really great spot to take that information there.
Well, great. We're really happy you're there. And John and I will make sure to connect with you and get you connected with Lisa Brundle and whatever you need. Thank you so much for being here. How about Lisa Ray Thomas?
Good afternoon, everybody. Lisa Ray Thomas. I'm with the University of Washington Alcohol and Drug Abuse Institute, and I also work with the American Indian Health Commission of Washington State, supporting statewide opioid response work. We're doing our yearly check-ins with the SOAR State Opioid Response Site, so I get to talk with some of you in that capacity as well. Thank you for all that you do.
Happy to have you here. How about Mel Melman?
Hi, Mel with Olympic Community of Health. I really have nothing to update or report with. Glad to be here.
Well, she says she has nothing to report, but I know that she's working on some communication stuff around stigma, and I'm excited about what she's going to be doing at the regional level. Mel, good to have you here. How about Pete Brummel?
Hey, Pete Brummel, East Jefferson Fire Rescue. Nothing to report grant-wise. However, we do have the new fire chief, Brett Black, starting December 1st. He is from Piedmont, California Fire Department, Municipal Fire Department down there in the Bay Area. So welcome, Brett Black, December 1st. I don't know, I'll continue to be part of this group until further notice.
Okay, well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Also, in this interim, it's been really nice to have you here just to create some continuity. I really appreciate that.
No problem.
Anna McHenry?
Yes, Anna McHenry here representing 1/10 of 1% Behavioral Health Advisory Committee. Also the Mental Health Field Response Team. As Commissioner Brotherton said, the RFP for the 1/10 of 1% sales tax is out, and it's due by 4 p.m. Monday, November 23rd. We've also been partnering with the sheriff, the undersheriff, and Judd Haynes on the Navigator project. So, grant. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Brian Richardson?
Hello, I'm with Dove House Recovery Cafe. This week, we're finishing up a round of interviews to hire the position and title is Recovery Advocate. They'll provide direct recovery support services. So what that looks like right now would be a lot of teleconnection, so phone, email, text, Zoom, both one-on-one and in recovery circle groups. But in addition, they'll also be able to do the outreach that we have been doing out at the fairgrounds off and on since the pandemic started, but more recently in earnest, coordinating with the county as well as Bayside, Cap, St. Vincent de Paul. I'm excited about that collaboration. It's so far gone well. The Fairgrounds Board has been involved with that as well. And hopeful to get folks what they need out there, some stability, referral to the resources, basic necessities, food, warm clothes, dry tents, that kind of thing. So thank you to Lori for helping out with the contract for this. That's how we're able to fund these recovery support services through this new hire. So that's what's going on with us.
Great. I'm really happy you guys are able to do some of that work out there at the fairgrounds. Thank you so much. Let's see. Everybody's jumping around. How about Gabby Cadell?
I'm Gabby. I'm the clinical supervisor of Believe in Recovery and the president of Gateway to Freedom. And what do you want to know? What's been going on?
What's been going on? Who's sitting behind you? Are they asleep?
Lily, Lily is passed out. Yes. Oh, nope.
Nope. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, we were interested in if you've got any grants you're chasing or anything, any collaborations you'd like to tell us about.
I am just looking forward to starting the RSAT grant at the jail, waiting on that still. And then Believe in Recovery just purchased a building, so we'll be moving sometime in the next 5 years. Really, I'm hoping to move next spring. It's a lot of paperwork, so doing that and just continuing to move forward and applying for whatever grants we can.
Well, congratulations on getting the building.
Thank you.
Be wonderful when that all gets settled.
Yes, definitely. Thanks.
Good to have you here. Okay, how about Apple Martine?
Well, I'm here in voice. And
Good
now,
to have you here.
dun, dun, dun. Come on. I'm so sorry, everyone. It's extremely busy here. And I'm just eating my lunch. That's why my video is off. Thank you, Lori. I'm Apple Martine. I am the Community Health Division Director at Jefferson County Public Health. I'm a nurse and I also oversee a lot of programs. I won't go into them. I think you all know who I am. Grants we're chasing. Our Nurse Family Partnership Program is reapplying for the 0.1%, and that's particularly of interest to this group because it has to do with substance use and mental health and utilizing that 0.1% tax to help our evidence-based program, Nurse Family Partnership, deploy our highly educated and really well-suited registered nurses to work with first-time families early in pregnancy. And though we're doing it virtually these days, we're still having a lot of success in engaging families and still onboarding new clients, even in this strange era of not meeting our clients face-to-face for the first time, which really is the bread and butter of the program, is that one-on-one contact for 2.5 years for each family through their pregnancy, through their birth, infancy, and into early toddlerhood. But we're managing to get those referrals anyway and get those folks signed up for our services. So that's one grant we're chasing. I'm also, this is an interesting connection, but I'm working on funding through or parallel to our WIC services, so our nutrition services for families, women, infant, and children, 0 to 5-year-olds. A companion project through WIC where there's some money being offered currently is what's called their Breastfeeding Peer Support Program. And it sort of exists on its own, but parallel to WIC. It's evidence-based as well, and it's utilized throughout the United States. And we're sort of in a round to try to onboard that into our WIC services. And the reason I bring it up to this group is that postpartum depression and a lot of the difficulties that families have in that first year, especially after childbirth, can really be mitigated by proper support. Breastfeeding is known to have many, obviously, positive impacts. We know that women need to feed in various ways. Breastfeeding isn't the only way that everyone can feed, though it is considered really important. So we are doing all we can to make sure that our clients are getting the wraparound support. And in this case, from peers. So we will hope to hire a WIC graduate to train extensively and come sort of under our umbrella to serve families sort of in the off hours, evenings and weekends, those critical moments when families are challenged and really doubt their ability to continue breastfeeding, which is really important for us to help be there at that time. Those are the two things I know of right now.
Okay, so much good work going on there in your landscape. Thank you for being here. Jen Morton.
Hi, Jen Wharton with Jefferson Healthcare, and I lead the medical group and ambulatory services, and I'm sorry I jumped on here late. So I gather we're talking about some grants. We are actually finishing up a grant that we've been, program that we've been working on through the University of Washington for the AIMS program. And the AIMS program is the integrated behavioral health and primary care model. So it's a program that we've been going through for the last month, and we actually have a psychiatric ARMP is doing a fellowship through the AIMS program, and it's how to really continue to further embed and work on some of those evidence-based practices for the integration model, mainly with our licensed clinical social workers and our psychiatric providers. So that's been good work by our team, and it has allowed us to expand our services. I don't recall the percentage, but we are seeing about an additional 50 more patients through primary care for behavioral health. So our primary care providers and our psychiatric providers work together on a collaborative care plan as well. So integrating mental and behavioral health. In terms of partnership, I see Jim on the line. Hey, Jim. We've been meeting with Jim for about every other week since COVID hit, and we've been really partnering and working on that transition of care of patients in our primary care who kind of are a lower acuity, and when they have higher acuity and those patients require an additional level of care, of how we transition those patients over to our partners at DBH, and when they become more stabilized, how they then transition back to a lower level of acuity. So we're getting the right care at the right place at the right time. And as we move into value-based care at the right cost. So that's been rewarding, and working with Katie, his new clinical leader over there, has been great. And then we're also gonna start working on better coordinating our MAP programs as well. So pretty excited about joining that with Jim. And Jefferson Healthcare is working with the Benji Project and the school systems for the campaign of the hashtag it's okay not to be okay. So we've been working, and MCS counseling with that, and being spearheaded by Cindy Osterman through the Benji Project. So we kind of did a emergent kind of intervention campaign education, and some of that information also went out to the schools and parents. And then we're all getting together back to the team to do some in the meantime, and then some long-term planning that we're hoping to kind of leverage the CHIP ICC through some of that eventually. So more to come.
All right. Everybody's got so much stuff going on. It's wonderful. Let's see. I think I've missed Troy Serber, Chief Serber. Happy you could make it.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little late. I'm working on an animal control issue here. So what was the main question?
We were just interested if there was anything collaboration-wise going on your landscape, or grants that you were chasing, that sort of thing.
Well, we've been pretty focused on recent events that are going on nationally, and I'm actually having an opportunity to get my feet back on the ground and focus on our community. So I'm looking forward to the election finally coming to an end, and moving forward and be able to join meetings like this on a regular basis.
Well, we're very happy that you're here. All right.
I'm happy to be here.
We'll go ahead and jump on over to our agenda. We'll go over just a quick overview of what's going on with the grant currently, talk about some additions to the consortium. John and I will talk about some BHC-Relevant funding efforts, and then John's going to take us through a CHA and CHIP update. I wanted to highlight to you guys that Amanda McAllister graduated from Behavioral Health Court. She's the one you see over here in the yellow circle. This is, a big part of the reason we do the work that we do, and so I always want to highlight when we've got somebody who's graduated a program. On the current grant and an update, I'll be coming out to you folks for minimal data that I need to fill out the quarterly report for the RCORP folks. That'll be due, the information that I'm asking for from you will be due on the 15th, and I'll go out to each of you individually and ask specifically what I need from you. But just to give you a heads up, that's coming. And then I thought it would be good to go over the outline of all of the projects that we have sort of teed up underneath this grant and talk just about when they're starting. So you see a very summary level overview of how the year is laid out. At least when I say the year, this is the first year of the performance period of this RCORP grant. These are the projects that we are committed to that will help us tick the many different categories that the grant needs us to do some movement on. So the provider prescriber integration effort that is already well underway, both between Jim and Ford, their two agencies working together. And then we do recognize that maybe as we get into the first quarter of next year, we'll look around and see where else in addition to that we can refine, or that people are already working on refining, and start to include that in the game plan of what we're talking to HRSA about and showing progress on. Then on the crisis stabilization, we're continuing to collect data. We haven't reached a go or no-go plan on that, but the data continues to be gathered. In fact, at the end of this, I'll outline the fact that for that work that we've been doing with Lisa Grundle, we'll be asking for data from all of our data partners for December 15th, I think. So it will go from September through the end of November, and we'll ask for that data by the middle of December. So that's out there. On the number 3, which is the maintain the online and printed resource directory, Brian Richardson's team has taken the chip work that was done to create the master resource list, and they have added to it and updated and have crafted a hard copy version, which John is going to work on, then creating a smaller sort of, what do they call it? A pamphlet that can be handed out. Go ahead, John.
Just something that's really portable that we can hand out at like food banks, and that law enforcement and EMS can carry with them when they're out and about in the community, so that it's something easy rather than several pages to pack around.
So you see, that's why I've got that one in just a little bit. It's about started. Then on the improving the jail to community service, I put this a little bit out later because we're still waiting to hear some that the contract has been solidified with the RSAT grant. And I'm sure that we'll do efforts above and beyond the RSAT grant, but that as that money lands, I think that will be when that project begins. Then we have the work that we'll be doing with Recovery Cafe, and that's another contract that I'm waiting to get through our legal so that we can get the funding out to Recovery Cafe. And then we'll sit down with them and lay out the steps for the peer network development and all of the directed ways that we can support prevention and recovery and the metrics that will associate with that. And then on number 6 here, building the harm reduction effort in South County. We are just in very initial talks with Chief McKern, who's the Quilcene Fire Chief. We're working with him to figure out who the players should be at the table, to develop a common understanding, and then determine what services and at one location and at which location. And then we'll also be developing a plan probably that will start with naloxone and then move into syringe exchange. And I'm not sure what the timing will be on that, but know that it is just in its very infancy stage and figuring out who the players are that will be at the table down there. Then, sorry, I keep doing that. The communication education integration plan, we're going to work at the local level. Denise Banker and I are going to get together here in the next couple of weeks and identify a contractor that we can work with just to do some initial communication around what the consortium is doing, and then how we can highlight the efforts that Denise and her team have going on the prevention front. So there will be so we're going to step into it carefully, and just so that we can get that project going, we'll look at that here in Jefferson County before we start to go up to the regional level, probably into next year. Then on the navigator, sorry. Yes, the next one is the navigation coordination. We put the timeline out more into the late spring of next year. And John and I are going to start some research on the HIPAA question, sort of how all of our players can be talking to each other and see what we can do there. It might be some incremental approach. It's not that we're going to solve the whole thing on the HIPAA front, but we think that there's some incremental steps that we can probably take. Anna and the MHFR team are going to be working on sort of updating the list of who is a navigator doing what, and then John will work with the MHFR and Anna to create a sort of current state and desired future state for how those players might collaborate. We recognize that sort of a judge who has one perspective about navigation, and then there's EMS services who probably have another perspective about what they need or what they know or what they need to know. So our goal is to make sure everybody has all of that information clear in their heads, and we're working as efficiently and optimized as we can. And then all of that work is a precursor to a Friendly Faces program where we look at collective case management for high utilizers of our law enforcement and EMS and jail services. So those are the things that are on the list, and the timeline of how we think they'll sort of get staggered into their starting mode. And then I would think by the beginning of the year, we'll have a more, probably for each one of these projects, I'll have a plan that is updated from what we submitted with the grant. Do we have any questions on any of that before I move on? Go ahead, Sheriff Knoll.
I was curious about where you started talking about adding a navigator, and I know that you sent me an email asking about talking about our potential navigator and how that would tie in with all the things that we're doing as groups or members in this group. Is the plan that this the grant that you got will add a navigator, a separate navigator?
No, I think that the role, or when we submitted the plan, what we outlined in terms of an action effort for this group was to think through what is the need on the navigation front, how can we develop our ways of communicating with each other that involve HIPAA, how can we make that as clear and easily managed so that multiple providers can have conversations with each other in ways that are legal and appropriate. And so there was that piece. There was the organize who we have and what they do and how are they working with each other, and making sure that all of the agencies that could use all of the different versions of a navigator. I think that ours was more of a coordination and an establishing of what the landscape is, a coordination, and then executing something that's a little more organized or efficient than it is right now. John, if you had anything you wanted to add to that?
No, not, I mean, just that it's really about coordinating navigator services, because they're becoming more and more prevalent in our community, and they work under a number of, there's case coordinators and care managers and case managers and navigators, and they all do pretty similar work. And it's how do we make sure there's not duplication of effort and that people are working in the most collaborative way possible, and maybe even developing a care map or a care plan for those really complicated patients that are community members that they're caring for.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and I don't know if, anyway, I would, still early in the game, but I would think that our navigator would be we would be on board totally for the collaboration and all that. However that all works.
I think one of the advantages of having the consortium together is this idea that we are a collective group who are looking at at this whole system from an overview, and our purview is county-wide. And so as the different agencies go after funding for whatever it is that they want to do, it would be wonderful if they could come back and give us a chance to think about it together. How could this work most efficiently so that we're creating a system that stands not just for the life of that grant, whatever grant it is that anybody's going after, but so that it fits in and puzzle pieces together with the whole system that we're trying to create that's robust and solid and of good infrastructure. Okay.
Well, ideally, we wouldn't need any grants, and we would just be doing this with magical money. And but no, that I like that idea of making sure we're using it. I'm understanding it to the most efficient or the best, making the best of it that we can.
Yes.
This is, I would certainly agree with that, to the extent that we also need to be nimble and take advantage of opportunities when they come along. And so how that fits with, you know, the consortium meeting once a month and grant response, you know, grant timelines being fairly short. I think it's a balance between whether we come and talk before a grant application is made by an organization or after. I think it's important that we also seize opportunities when they become available.
Absolutely. I don't think that there's any desire for the consortium to stand in the way of progress. We would just like to leverage the fact that we have spent all of this time and energy to create an overview and a plan and a common understanding, that we leverage it where we can as we add new pieces to the conversation. Any other questions? I think I might have started to talk over somebody, but I'm not sure who it was.
Oh, it's Dave here. Sorry. No, I just wanted to point out too that a lot of these grants that we're chasing that have some of these care navigation parts are detailed fairly specifically as to what roles those navigators will play. And so when we come back to this group and we're like, oh, by the way, we got this grant and here's the services we're going to provide, that's a puzzle piece we have to kind of piece in together with everywhere else that we're doing this other work. And it may overlap and we might not have any. As much as we'd like to streamline those navigators, there might be specific requirements that we have to do based on those grants. So
right.
Just keep that in mind, I guess.
The good news is if we're all aware of all of the different navigators and the things that are sort of specific to each navigator position, I think we will be nimble, as Vicki says. We will be nimble in our use of all of those navigators. Okay. Moving on. Any other questions? Good. So I included these two slides just because now this list, which you've seen in other packets, is in a different order. It's now in the order of when it gets started, which you saw back here on this slide. And then I thought if I was going to do that, then I should probably switch so that the numbering in the new order is what you see on this, how each one of those projects impacts at these different intersection points. And you can see the navigator, let me see what number that was, number 8. It seems like somebody was asking the question, that question about where do navigators impact, and it really is at every one of these intersect points. And so it's a worthwhile thing for us to have a grip on. One of the things that we wanted to bring forward to you folks is the 3 additions that we're thinking of for the Behavioral Health Consortium, and just to have any feedback if people had any feedback to give. The first is Cherish Cronmiller from OLICAP, so that we'll have representation on the housing front. The second is Nat Jacobson from the Public Defender's perspective. We were presenting to the city, and that was one of the things that the folks on that, on the city council suggested, that they saw that there was a bit of a blank spot there on the public defender side. So,
Lori, his name is Nat Jacob.
oh, I'm sorry, Nat Jacob. Y'all just dropped that SON. And then also Chief McKern from Quilcene Fire Department, as he'll be a big part of how we carry forward that harm reduction program down in South County. Is there any thoughts or comments or narrative that anybody would like to share as we consider those?
I think they all look like good additions. This is great.
All right.
I was going to say the same thing. I agree with Greg.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll invite them to the next meeting and give them an overview of what we're about. And I appreciate everybody being open to having them here. I think it will make us a more well-rounded collective as we address what we're trying to build in the community. And then, let's see, John, I think this is where we're going to start with some of the things that you're talking about with the ICC Human Services.
Yep. So I have been participating for the last few months with one of the intergovernmental committees that's looking at human services. And there's some funding that was available from CARES grant, and then there's potentially some additional funding that could be coming later on. And actually, Commissioner Brotherton may be more up to date than I am on this, but so this is the team members of the Human Services Subcommittee, which I participated in. And go ahead to the next slide, Lori. So this was the original, these were the original items that were funded through CARES funding in the first go round of funding. So it was keeping the American Legion open 24/7 instead of just during the evening hours. It was also providing a meal, some utility assistance. Here's another navigator, an OLICAP COVID navigator, kind of a short-term position, but I think there's hope that that will be extended. And then tutors and facilities for students, and then food delivery for seniors and immunocompromised people in our community. So those were the things. We made a proposal of several more items, but these were the ones that were approved in the initial round of funding. And then Lori, if you go to the next slide. This is the entire proposal that was made. The things that are in green are those things that were approved. The things that are in light blue are things that were not even, we decided not even to submit in the first go round. And the things that are in dark blue are things that were submitted and rejected. So you can kind of see on the left-hand side of the table is the kind of the large idea. So the first one's housing, the second one's about community resilience and cohesion, and then the sub-ideas that come underneath that. So housing was number one, community resilience was number two, and then Laura, you can go to the next slide. Looking at what community needs was number three. Funding and assistance for families was number four, and then distribution of a community-wide resource group, which is actually a CHIP item, was number five. So you can see that all these things kind of work to support kind of the, you know, those underlying activities that go on that support reducing stress in our community. And all of this was presented in a final report more recently to the ICC group, all of these recommendations. And I know that they're looking at potentially some additional funding for these items. The things that were approved were only approved through the end of the year. And so those would all end on January 1st or before that. And I think, Lori, there's one more slide about this. So it's kind of how can the BHC's work integrate with ICC funding, and You know, what do we need to do to make that happen? And I think that's where we were curious if you guys had any other additional thoughts about how to augment the work that's going on in this ICC group, or at least make sure that we're aware of it. And I'll quit there and let others comment or ask questions.
I'd like to make one comment, or one question, I guess. I was unaware of an actual source of additional funding so far, so I'd be curious to hear if you have one. I think this is, I always understood it to be more getting prepared for any subsequent funding or reprioritizing budgets or anything like that. And then I wanted to make one point about the kind of the architecture of the CARES funding that changed after we got these proposals, the initial proposals, and that was that all Jefferson County public health efforts were able to qualify even if they were covered in a different way. So instead of having to have subrecipient contracts with OLICAP or for JCF for some of these, we're able to just, the county is able to just get the money and then make direct payments to the subrecipients as direct grant arrangements out of the general fund. So it's really kind of streamlined that process, and hopefully if there is another stimulus or relief package from the feds, that would also the State Department of Commerce would use the same way of facilitating it. And I think that's, but yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, and I think the possibility of future funding was really around additional CARES funding that might be approved, which right now is not looking very promising, but who knows what will happen with a change of administration.
One final note, the final report, taking all of the 6 groups' reports and digesting them will be, I think, ready for the meeting, the ICG meeting or ICC meeting on the November 18th. So coming up next week.
Any other questions or comments on that before we move on? All right, thank you.
So the way that we looked at the ICC funding, and hopefully can think in a collective way about what we can do in the future, currently and in the future, to support those, the efforts that are being funded there, I think is the same way that we want to look at as the jail treatment program gets underway, which I just included the slides here, just if you guys wanted them for quick reference. They give an overview of what that program is about. And certainly once David Fortino and the jail and Gabby have started working on that, we want to support in whatever way is possible, and there may be creative ways that we can support. And so I'd like to keep that sort of to the front of our thoughts as all of the funding comes online from all of these different places around the community, that we look at how we can be supportive as a whole. Because if we've created this whole committee and done this work, and then we all go off and do our own individual things, I'm afraid that the work that we would have done might not be so effective. And the same then is as we go and ideally get the funding for the navigator role in the county, we would ask the same question, I think, around how could we support that. Are there any questions on either of those two, on the RSAT or the WASPIC grant?
You know, Lori, this is Denise, and I don't have any questions about that, but I was trying to get to a document when you moved on from the ICC stuff. And I was on a group similar to John's, and ours is called the Children and Families Group. And all of the projects that we proposed were funded. One includes a sort of, one of them is providing food to families with children 0 to 5. We went with the YMCA to do some stuff around that. A family resource center with a central hub that provides access to resources, including parental support and education for stress reduction mitigation. We, and we're going for more funding for that for next year too. We proposed a mental health community resilience project if there's more funding coming. We have a community-wide youth engagement, connection, and mentorship project. We have Family Resource Navigator, which is also through that overall, sorry about this, I'm kind of scrolling back and forth on something. Family Resource Center Central Hub, that Navigator is part of that.
Is that a navigator in addition to the navigator that, yes, because, so we've got a bunch of navigator or a few navigators that are coming online as a result of this, that it would be nice to see us organize together.
Yeah, right. We've got because John mentioned one, we have one. Ours is Family and Children's. It'll be MCS Counseling. We'll hire the person. That job application has been already made available. And they will be the hiring entity, and the YMCA is the fiscal agent for that. The community-wide.
Do you know if those are funded longer than just till the end of this funding, or if the funding that we got COVID-wise takes them to a certain point and then we need to come up with funding to fund them beyond that?
We already had some funding for that position, and then we got more funding through COVID, and then we're trying to find additional funding to keep it rolling. So it's good to go for maybe 2 years at this point, and then that gives us some time to find additional funding. So because we already had, sort of secured a little funding before this CARES money became available. We got funding for a study lounge at the Proctor House. And we got funded for case management for foster care volunteers through Olympic Angels, and a fall COVID PR campaign. So that'll be coming up.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Anna. And I just wanted to add that it might really be helpful to, like Denise was pointing out with the Children and Family Services Subcommittee, to look at the other subcommittees, because a lot of those services or programs, funding requests could overlap, and definitely look at that. And Greg,
right, I mean, what I'm thinking is that if, so there were all these different groups, some of them sort of dovetailed, if we looked at, as the Behavioral Health Consortium looked at all of the things that were funded, then we could see how they interconnect. And, if we drew the Venn diagram, we could see how they overlap and how they can speak to and strengthen each other. Not thinking of them as, repeating services, but as strengthening and building on each other kind of thing.
Actually, Denise, some of the proposals that are here, we kind of co-did with your group. So there is some level of coordination that's taking place, but I agree with both what you and Anna said, that it would be good to look at the entire funding stream and see what the projects were and see how they augment the work that's going on at this group.
Right, and it sounds like Greg has said that we'll have an opportunity to do that soon. Is that correct, Greg?
Well, I'm not sure how much we're going to be looking at the funded projects in comparison to each other, but that's, I agree that would be good. But no, I think there's going to be more looking at the ongoing reports, and some of the groups that I'm involved with look onward to kind of short and medium next steps in our plan. So I'm not sure. I think there's a little bit, we're kind of done with that and moving on, but I agree there's more analysis to be done. And I have those documents if people want to look through them. I'm happy to share them.
Okay, then that's what I was thinking too, is that if we could have all the documents made available, then we could look at them and then see how they all augment one another. Nice word, John.
I'll send that to Lori after the meeting.
Thank you so much, Greg. Okay, so that actually is something really good that came out of this, and thanks for Denise and Anna for just this concept of, yeah, let's look at the whole thing together and see where they overlap and where we can strengthen what we've got. It's wonderful we've got this funding come in now. Let's really optimize it. Okay, let's see. John, I think we were up to the Chachik update.
Yeah, so go ahead to the next slide, Lori. So this is kind of a quick overview of what we had intended to do, really starting in 2019. It was to develop a really robust kind of community health assessment analysis, and there were some components of that. There was a survey, community forums, key informant interviews, some quantitative analysis. So we put all that information together to form the community health assessment. We took that to the joint board, which is a combination of the hospital board and the health department board. We did do some community conversations. We made presentations out in the community. And then we had a group that was really looking at, what was the data that was in that report and how might we reprioritize the issues for health in our community. And that's about the point that COVID hit in our community. So that kind of was a bit of a derailing influence. But the one thing that preliminary group that reviewed the information suggested was that we look at dividing the issues into 3 age bands, which it's youth, working age, and elder age bands. So Lori and I have been starting to do some work to kind of put those groups together. So the initial group that did some analysis tried to prioritize the most important issues for each of those 3 groups. So next slide, Lori. So for the youth group, it was teen suicide, mental health, bullying, and increasing youth developmental opportunities. For the working age group, next slide, Lori. It's improving access to behavioral health, improving the social determinants of health like housing, poverty, transportation, a crisis stabilization center. And for the elder group, it was preparing for an aging population. And I think most of you know, we are one of the oldest counties in the United States. We're the oldest county in Washington state by average age. And then strategizing for advanced care planning. So what Lori and I have been trying to do is think about how do we, there's already a lot of work in these areas going on in our community. So we've been trying to figure out how to integrate with work that's being done by the ICC teams, that's work that's being done by the Behavioral Health Coalition, work that's being done, at large in different community groups. And what we want to do is make sure that we're not duplicating work that's going on in our community. And also, Lori and I are a resource to the community for health. And we want to make sure that we position the time and energy that we have in a way that is the most beneficial to the community. So next slide, Lori. So since the last BHC meeting, Lori and I met with some members of the city and county and also the CHIP Oversight Committee to talk about how we might move forward with the age band strategy. And then Lori and I have come up with a more detailed age plan that we're going to be presenting tomorrow to some city and county leaders to have some discussion about whether we're on the right track. Next slide. So this is kind of, at this point, it's written in Jello. It's just our suggestion for how we might move forward. So our suggestion is that for the youth age band, that it would grow out of the ICC Children and Families work group. Denise, you're not on that, or you're on that group, so nobody's ever talked to you about that. So we don't know for sure if that's going to work or not, but that's kind of our suggestion, that that's a group that's already existing that kind of has a similar function, and that we hope we might be able to leverage. Probably most important for this group, we're hoping that since the working age band group is really focused primarily on mental health issues, what we would like to do is leverage some of you that are part of this group to become the age band, working age band group. And so we're hoping that you would be able to meet with us after, at the end of the BHC meetings for another 30 minutes. A subgroup of you would be able to do that. And the function and the elder age band group would be made up. It's a new group because there's not actually a group in the community that's doing work with elderly right now. Go ahead, next slide. So what those groups would do is review that data from the community health assessment, the previous work, and establish some priorities. And then they'd use a strategic framework to develop goals, strategies, and activities to support the plan. And then the hope is that we could have a draft of a new CHIP plan by August of 2021. So I think next slide, Lori.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
On the elderly, I know that O3A has a pretty strong group of providers that network together. Information and assistance, having Greg that works with O3A, so you might be able to leverage them. I can send you her contact info.
I think I've got the contact. They're actually part of that, what we're intending for that group, but that would be good for me to reach out to her ahead of time and just make sure.
And also Jackie Hoyle, who was on our human services team as the director, one of the sub-directors at O3A.
Awesome. So we would like to invite members of this group to participate in the working age band group if you're interested in doing that, and really help shape the next strategic framework for the CHIP plan. The idea would be that we would, establish a couple of high-level goals, two to three high-level goals, and then strategies and activities underneath that to make basically a more robust plan. And the idea would be that you would meet 30 minutes after this meeting, a smaller subgroup to go over that. So if you're willing to do that or interested in doing that, if you could let me or Lori know, and then I'll start putting together the subgroup to do that. So just, I know we're right at the end of time, but just reaction to that, does that seem like a good plan? And would some of you be interested or willing to participate in that?
Great.
Thumbs up.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, John. Just a reminder, we're going to be collecting the data for the September through the end of November timeframe. We'll be coming back to you folks. We'd like to get it by December 15th. Just starting to log the thought now. I'll reach back to all of you individually and say exactly what we're looking for from you. We appreciate all the data you have given us and the data you're about to give us. And then, oh yes, okay, it's really the end. This was our thank you for playing Jefferson County Squares, which is sort of a takeoff on the Hollywood Squares. Is everybody old enough to remember that show, the Hollywood Squares? Okay, good job. All right, any other questions or thoughts before we end our meeting? Well, with that, all of my people just went away. I don't know where you went. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Let's do here.
Thank you, Lori and John, for all of the work that you do.
Well, thank you. It's good to be working with such a good group. I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish, even in sort of crazy times. And we'll look forward to seeing you all next month. Have a great week.
Thanks, everyone.